Welcome back. After the last couple of sessions of creating external tables on the taxi zone file, you must be familiar with creating external tables for delimited text files. So I would like you to create external tables for the remaining delimited files too we've got. Amongst this calendar is very similar to the taxi zone file. It's a simple CSV file or a comma-separated file. Vendor has a few variations, but don't worry about them. Just create the table on the vendor.csv file. Trip data is a tab-separated or TSV file, so you will have to create an external file format for the TSV format as well as the external table. That would be a good experience for you. We had the trip data file in a few different formats such as CSV, Parquet, and Delta. Please use the CSV format for this exercise, and we'll look at Parquet and Delta in the forthcoming lessons. The only difference here for this trip data file is that the data for this is partitioned into separate folders, so you should handle that. But from the previous lessons, I hope you will know how to read data from the folders. So take these 4 tables as an assignment. Please come back to the video if you get stuck and I'll walk you through my solution. Good luck. Welcome back. Hope you managed to complete the assignment. If not, please follow along with me. So let's start with the calendar file. As we said, calendar file, it's quite straightforward. It's very similar to the taxi zone file. It's the simple comma-separated file. And what I've done here is actually I've created the table based on the columns which we defined earlier. If you remember, as part of Discovery, we've given columns for every single file. So I just copied the column names from here and then just used them in the create table statement or external table statement. And I've used the same CSV file format, which is the parser version 1, and I've specified the reject values and the rejected row location as well. You could just use the same parser version number or the different one, which is the version 2, which we call the CSV file format. So let me just quickly run this through. And as you can see here, we've got all the data being selected as well as we expect to see. And let's move on to the next one. Next one is the vendor CSV file. Let me go to that. So for the vendor CSV file, we've had a couple of variations of the vendor file, but I did ask you to take the event a.csv so that no differences between this one and the other two would be done. So again, I've used the parser version 1 and I've given the reject values and reject locations. This file has got only 2 records, so the reject value of 10 really doesn't make any sense, but I've just left it in there. So let's just run this through. And as you can see, we've got the 2 records being brought out here. So let's move on to the trip type. This is slightly different because it's a tab-separated values file or a TSV file. So what I have done is I've created a new file format called TSV, and let's go File Format and copy one. So let me show you that. So I've copied the CSV file format for the version 1 and 2 and did exactly the same for TSV as well. So I've got the TSV version 2.0, which I have called the TSV file format, which is the normal one I'm going to use. And the other one I've called the PV1, and that is 1.0. The difference between a CSV and TSV is instead of the comma, we've got the /t to represent that. It's a tab. So let's execute these 2 statements here. So the file formats are created. So that's executed successfully. And as you can see here, query, executed successfully. Let's move on to the table here now. So the only difference, as we said, is using the TSV file format rather than the CSV. And let's run the statements to create the table for us and select some data from there. So again, that's got 2 records, and we've got the 2 records being listed here as what? So let's talk about the last one, which is the trip data green CSV. This one, if you remember, had the partitions in it. So let me move over to the data hub and let's have a look at the data very quickly. And as you can see here, trip data green CSV has got year partitions, and then you've got the month partitions within them as well. So in order to read all of the data, we need to create the table on top of this folder, which is the data green CSV. And also we need to provide these /** stored in order to skin the subfolders because we have got the files within the subfolders. So that's why we specify the /*. That is quite important. And apart from this, it's the same thing as the other. So I've chosen again to use the PV1 file format, but that's probably not a good idea. That's because this is a huge file. You don't want to have the version 1 running on it. We want to have the most efficient version, that is parser version 2. So that's the reason I have used parser version 2 instead parser version 1. And if we change that to version 2, as you know, you can't have the rejection either. And that should be an efficient way of reading the file now using the external table. Let's run this too. So let me do that. But you may have noticed that I've done a top 100 here because this table has got about 500,000 records. So let me just do that. And as you can see, the data has now come through as well. So that's brilliant. With that, they've successfully completed creating external tables for all of our delimited text files. But you might be wondering what happens to the partitions on this final table. Are we able to prune the partitions? When we discussed this as part of the discovery, we said actually in a big data project, you're going to have a lot of data and you will partition all of the data and you won't be prune the partitions. That is one drawback of having external tables. But there is a way around it, and I'll discuss all of these issues as well as the solution in a later session. But that's the end of this session, and I'll see you in the next one.